bill that seeks to amend the Nigeria Data Protection Act 2023 is past for second reading at the Senate. Now, this bill was sponsored by Senator Ned Nwoko on the grounds that the bill will ensure that Nigeria gets revenue from social media platforms once they have physical offices within the territory of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the bill also seeks to ensure that bloggers would have a list and record of their staff. So some social media platform operators have already, or some social media, those who are in the social media industry, content creators and some others have begun to ask what's going on. Is this targeting social media users? Is this a way to ensure that they don't use social media as they want? But the sponsor of the bill is saying it is not targeted at social media users. It is not targeted at content creators, but it is to ensure that the country can get revenue from the different social media platforms, and also to address certain challenges that have come up with bloggers blogging. So the bloggers should have a record of their staff. Pray.
Okay, I remember briefly we referenced this conversation yesterday, and I was talking about how they need to have a presence here, build an office, have employees who would have been trained, and who, when you have their their presence here, there's need for you to employ physical people to work for an organization, and how this will benefit the economy and Nigeria. And I remember vividly, Doc was talking about filing tax returns. And that took me to last year when the Biden administration, by way of constituting a Senate committee, invited the owner of Facebook, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, and a few other social media giants, and we're asking questions regarding to data protection, and if the data of young people, of teenagers, and any other persons are well protected, and if the social media, or they are not, infiltrating people's data using information technology. We move away from that from the United States. Some other countries are fining Meta and Facebook with lots of file return, tax returns, accusations against them that they are evading tax, and how they need to pay their tax remittances for how those organizations and how the country can function well. They move away from that aspect to another aspect where we started talking about how even if you are a blogger or you are a content creator, you need to start paying taxes. And a regulatory arm. So there is this mixed feelings, and this recent development could be seen as, though it's a mixed feelings, it could be seen as a way of government putting its feet down or trying to mean business to make sure we're also getting something from the content creators and the social media operators. But one question needs to be asked. We are not very, very clear about this proposed policy yet.
Well, I think if you look at what the Senate is trying to do is to see how this ungoverned space is actually being addressed. As we speak right now, the social media, especially in the age of Web 1.30, where anybody become a content creator, and there are no liabilities attached to it. This also is an area that people are talking about, because if you go, for example, in Europe and America right now, what they're talking about is AI governance, because the law does not capture it. And the law did not envisage that there will be AI. Now, I can imagine what kind of conversation we are going to have in court if cases is arising from social media. Because the people who are the framer of the law are writing law to address issues that are within their time of living. Those who wrote 1999 Constitution, you can imagine some of them are long dead. And of course, they are not here to witness the advent of blockchain and AI. So there's no way those things should have been factored into the law. So as long as country lives, the dynamics continue. The lawmakers are always there to ensure that the laws that govern the republic is updated from time to time. And this is quite very important because we're living in an age where a lot of untruths are also out there that can lead people to dying. And people just get out there because they want to trend, as they call it in today's language. And falsehoods are peddled. And of course, these addresses you don't know. Nobody traces where these IPs are coming from. And all this create a lot of problems. Remember, there was a time that Mr. President himself said that he doesn't even go there because they abuse the hell out of him in the social media space. And some of us are even afraid to go there because of the level of bullying that is out there in that space. So the need to regulate it become really very, very germane in my view. But on the other side of it is also to look at those who are also supplying these services, the need for them to be domesticated. But really beyond the task, if you look at it, because the real trade war now between Europe and America is even centered around this. Because if you look at the body language of Donald Trump, he's actually saying, you are overtaxing our people. You are fining them unnecessarily, even without law. And because they are American businesses, and so we are going to retaliate. So I think that balance had to be drawn some way so that, of course, while we are trying to regulate the space, we also don't create forced relationship with our partners out there.
Well, I think this issue of social media platforms having physical offices in Nigeria has been a dragging one, because remember that during the time when we had Lai Mohammed as Minister for Information, he also brought that up. And then the argument on the side of the government has been that they want to be able to tax the social media platforms, because when they do not have offices here, it's quite hard to do all of that. So citing offices here would mean that the government will be able to get revenue from them as they make a lot of money operating in Nigeria. So it's more like it's almost abstract when it's fully on the digital space and there's no physical presence. So it looks like the company doesn't operate here. So how then do you begin to tax them? Then I think it also it will help in terms of accountability and addressing certain issues. When you have physical presence within a country you operate in, you're more likely to comply with the policies governing your sector than when you do not have physical offices within that country. For the bloggers issue, I think that's very important. That's very important. Even if you are the only one operating your blog site as a blogger, so you are the owner and staff, let's also know who you are. Because people have abused that, the fact that, oh, so because I'm blogging, I'm operating within a digital space, you don't have a face and sometimes even a name to the blog. So they can use that to say all sorts of malicious things about people. It's as if now having a blog is equal to having a medium that gives you the leeway to say what you want to say about anybody, not even caring whether there is truth to it, there is fact to it. So it's more like a tool for blackmail, a tool for maliciousness. And one of the ways to curb it would be, let's have name to this. Let's have faces to this. Part of the reason conventional media rely on fact and they have to push fact is because there is the NBC, the National Broadcasting Commission, that regulates the activities of broadcasters. And there is face and name to it. So a station airs or says something malicious or defames a person you have the station to hold accountable. You have the presenter or whoever it is that said that to hold accountable. But when a blog site publishes things that there is no backing to the factualness of that, who do you hold? And sometimes when investigations are done, the person who, or the details of the person who registered that blog site, it's hard to even trace who the exact person is. So it's more like people are hiding behind a lot of opaqueness to carry out evil.
All right.
So it is not that the social media users or content creators or bloggers would be gagged, but it's just saying that you want to do this, let's know who your staff are, so that when there is a complaint of defamation, there is a complaint of unethical practice, we know who to hold accountable. And I think that would, to a great extent, bring sanity into the blog space, because we've seen a lot of abuse, a lot of bullying, a lot of blackmailing ongoing.
Okay, so for the
cannot survive it.
all right. so the thing is this: whilst you made a reference to the conventional media. Whilst making reference to the conventional media, we also must remember there have been times in this country where the government of the day had to go shut down conventional media offices, physical offices. There had been different administrations, federal governments, in this country where they shut down newspaper offices, television stations were besieged by military men and police officers. In fact, there are some presenters, immediately they are done with their shows, the producer and the presenter will be hauled away by the DSS. There had been cases like that in the history of the media in Nigeria. So, if you have a physical presence, there are things you say. Sometimes it's not that those things are not factual, it's that your criticism of the authorities at that specific point in time, the authorities just could not handle it. It's not that they are not handled.
In the case of bloggers, do we really have
I'm coming to that.
Criticizing governments?
I'm coming to that.
Or they're attacking personalities?
I'm coming to that. So when they do that, sometimes when the conventional media does that, the government or the authorities during those period of time had gone overboard to make sure that they shut down operations, and it will send fear. So social media presents a platform where people can say, okay, now let me stand on this leg first. I can give a constructive criticism to the government without fear of being located and arrested because the federal or the government feels or thinks I'm touching a nerve. In that particular extent, we can say social media presents a space, protective space, where people can, without any form of intimidation, air their views and not be intimidated or chased up and down by the government.
Okay.
As far as the case where you say people use social media as a tool to carry out malicious activities or defame characters, there have been instances where people do those things and they've been apprehended.
How many have been apprehended?
Okay, fine. Let's say the number
Let's
is
not even
small.
mention a
Let's
very
say the
popular
number
one.
is small, but we have to make sure that, because the government has placed itself in a place whereby it cannot be trusted, even when they are criticized and they come out against whoever is criticizing them.
How many blogs in Nigeria criticize government, whether constructively or otherwise? A lot of blogs are after personalities.
Oh, there are different blogs.
A lot.
Sometimes the personalities they are out against are in government.
No. The personalities that most times they are even after are celebrities. And these are human beings too. Now, you have the right as a blog to create content, but you do not have the right to intimidate people using your blog to spread lies or to spread unfounded content, unfounded material about people. You can blogs usually, when blogs started, it's just that, see, when there is no rule or policy guiding the way a practice is done, you would have abuse. Let me respond to what you were saying regarding conventional media. Yes, there have been times, even during the military era, where journalists or media houses were scared to speak truth to power or to hold government accountable. Yes, there are those cases. And there are also cases where even in civilian dispensation, in democratic dispensation, we've seen some of those things happen. But look, let's tell ourselves the truth. For some of the media houses that have been slammed with sanctions from the NBC, there are codes. There are codes of conduct.
I wasn't talking about the NBC. I was talking about the government.
The government does that through the NBC. The government would not outrightly go to any media house and shut it down. It is the NBC that will fine.
The newspapers that was shut down in Abuja, the government did not go through the NBC. It just shuts it down.
The NBC does not preside over newspapers. It is called the National Broadcasting Commission. It is broadcast that is superintended over, not newspapers.
When you say government has organs.
It has agencies as well.
It has agencies that are regulatory practices. So when you are saying government, you see, it's an amorphous term. You cannot hold it. So anything that NBC does is done on behalf of government. Anything DPR done is done on behalf of government. These are agencies that are empowered by the Constitution to run the environment and regulate it on behalf of all of us. One man can't wake up in the morning and shut down a newspaper house.
Let's even look at the ones that are shut. What led to them being shut or fined?
So you have to look at it. It could be...
Don't we also have media houses that have aired or defaulted on the codes?
DSS can go there. Now, the fact that DSS have gone there does not mean that it is Mr. President or the head of Senate that said they should go there. So we must understand that government is an amalgam of different agencies, different institutions who come together. And of course, they have their mandate. Some of them are derivable from the Constitution of the Federal Republic. They are established by that act of Parliament, and so they are operating. Now, so when you keep saying government,
yes.
I don't understand what you mean. NBC is run by NBC is part of government.
And the regulator
so now let
me
say this. NBC currently, as we speak, I think there's the latest in NBC fining media houses is that the current verdict that was given is that NBC by the courts that NBC does not have the right to find media houses.
How do you mean? How do you mean
that's the latest. They do not have the right. It is not me. It's coming from the court.
I want you to clarify that court judgment. Is it a blanket judgment that the NBC does not have the right to find media houses on certain matters, or the NBC as the regulator of the media industry in Nigeria, media sector in Nigeria, doesn't have the right
I don't want to start mentioning
to sanction media houses who flout the code.
See, if they are sanctioning media
because
houses,
sanction comes
if
with
this
fines.
is not coming from me, it's coming from the courts.
That's why I want to clarify
if the courts gave that verdict, it is simply saying the NBC, it's not that you cannot sanction, but you cannot impose a fine.
Sanctions come with fines. That's why they are sanctions.
It is not me, it's the court that said that. Now, when the court said that, because there were radio stations, and of course, one of the biggest television stations in Nigeria, in Lagos, that were fined 5 million, 3 million naira, just because one of them interviewed one of the persons or outlawed group by the government. And there were other cases where the radio presenter the radio station was fined because they felt the radio presenter was unable to
was the presenter actually unable to moderate
they felt the allegation by the NBC against the radio station was that they were unable to, the presenter was unable to coordinate and tame the usage of word of the guest on that program, and 5 million naira went. Okay, 3 million naira went. Now I'm getting somewhere. I'm heading somewhere.
Let's address issues as we go on,
yes,
so that we don't leave anything untouched.
I am not. I'm just trying to lay.
So, did you watch that particular interview to ascertain if NBC's judgment was wrong or right?
I watched that interview. Now, before I answer that question, the thing is, I watched that interview. One thing I want to paint out is this. Media station, it is capital intensive to run a media organization.
Sure.
Be it radio, be it television station. And these are on the platform of conventional media. And the people in government understands this. They also understand that these are one of the eyes, are one of the institutions that can hold them to account. Little wonder, we are called the fourth realm of the estate. And if we do that, and through an arm of the government.
Yeah, but you see.
No. So through an arm of the government is now coming to say you did this, that, and the other. We want to make sure we stifle your way of operation by stifling your finances to operate. Now, that is that. Now, for the other spaces.
So how do you regulate?
No, now regulations. No. The reason the court has given a verdict concerning that.
Yeah,
sanction,
see,
yes. Fine. The court said
so
no.
When we started the
fine.
issue this
The
morning,
court said no.
I
so
said,
now,
this morning I just knew what it means that lawyers are called learned men because they can be so confused.
Really?
Oh yes, and I think these are some of the issues that even as we speak, the Supreme Court ruling has been turned back, forth, and center in the public domain.
The public domain is not a court.
Wait, I understand. It's not a court. Even lawyers, retired Supreme Court judges. And see, judgments are good. But you see, the truth is that we have to be careful what kind of society we are forming. Is it that we really want anarchy so that people can do everything without caution? I give you one simple example. WhatsApp message went out during Ebola that people should be bathing with salt. Oh, yes.
Yes, there were lots of.
I remember that day how my mother was calling me in the dead of the night whether I have mixed salt with water to bath. You see, those mischief makers in society, you see, when you are looking at something, don't look at one side. Stand on the other side and look at it. A number of people, a number of lives and personalities that have been damaged by very terrible posts by people who just want simple popularity. And so, how do you deal with these issues? So you just allow them to run riots, and then the state just fold their hand because you are advocating for freedom. You see, where your freedom ends, that's where another man's freedom begins. So you cannot use your freedom because you have freedom to express yourself. Then you have to infringe on my freedom. That is the reason why the state exists. To ensure that there's a point where you understand where you have the limit of your freedom and I have the limit of my freedom, and then we can live within that environment and we're not damaging each other and we are not offending each other.
We're still on policy discourse. Yes, we've been talking about the bill that seeks to amend the Data Protection Act 2023, which has been passed for second reading at the Senate, and the bill is sponsored by Senator Ned Nwoko. So in the course of the conversation, I don't know if to call him now my learned colleague, he's a media practitioner.
You have to be very afraid.
He's a media practitioner, but whether he wants to change career path, I don't know. So he was talking about it was citing a court injunction given when there was a case between the NBC and some TV station. So the suit followed the decision by the NBC to impose a fine of 5 million naira each on Trust TV, MultiChoice Nigeria Limited, NTA, StarTimes, Telcom Satellites over documentaries on terrorism in Nigeria. So the judgment of the court declared that the NBC and its agents lack the legal power and authority to impose penalty unlawfully and unilaterally. So there is a clause. You lack the power, NBC lacks the power to impose sanctions, to impose a penalty unlawfully and unilaterally. Not that the NBC does not have the power to impose fines or penalties on stations that have flouted the NBC codes. As of today, the NBC is still the regulatory agency of media stations or media practitioners in Nigeria.
And I think what the judge is trying to say is that you have to establish that an offense has been committed before a fine can apply. So that's fairness, that's some level of justice. So I can't say, okay, you are guilty, I fine you, but you have to establish it within the ambit of the law. And then, of course, you can actually dictate who gets the fine. The
NBC, the fine that they imposed, and the court gave a judgment that they lack the constitutional right to impose a fine.
Unlawfully, don't forget to add that.
No, okay, in my own copy, it doesn't have unlawfully.
Maybe you should check it out.
No, you cannot say yours is correct and mine is
not.
No,
I'm not. I didn't write it there.
I didn't write it too.
Are you
and it's coming from the law.
Two
different, it's coming from the court. So the other thing is this.
Word having different meaning.
Media Rights Organization was the one that took NBC to court. Media Rights Agency was the one that took NBC to court. And the other thing, there was never been a time that the NBC had taken the side of media organizations. It is an arm of government to strictly stifle the media. And if any NBC had been very, very neutral in this case, whereby it can serve as an organization to advise the government and also have the stomach to regulate lawfully the media, then it would have been a neutral umpire and the media would have accepted NBC with both hands. But since in time immemorial, that NBC has been saddled with that responsibility. All the people at the ends of affairs, they're always like holding hammer in their hand and waiting for the media organization, most especially radio station or television station, to just cross the line and hit them on their head. That has been the strategy of NBC, and that is what the court is taming right here.
Okay, so to wrap up on this, I would say that your opinion that the NBC has been out to stifle media stations. Well, I don't concur with that because there are trainings even. Yes, the code on some areas might be stringent, but it does not mean that it is out there the NBC is out there to stifle or to gag the media. So the NBC even organizes trainings for media practitioners and media houses, explaining the codes and how you can practice ethically to be sure that you do not flout these codes. Are there room for improvement? Of course, the biggest room in life, the biggest room for any agency, any organization is the room for improvement. So I think we can improve on it, but it's not to say that the NBC is out there to stifle media practitioners or media operations in Nigeria. Talking about the hammer, every regulator carries a hammer. The CBN carries a hammer. The CBN imposes sanctions on airing bans. So that's what the regulator does. But we should do that in the way that the practice can be fair. Like I said, there's always room for improvement. The bill has only been passed for second reading. Let's see what happens. Of course, due consultations will be made with relevant stakeholders at the end of the day. And finally, the week's edition of Front Burners has come to an end. This has been the grand finale for the entire week. We began Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and this is Friday. Thank God it's Friday. After the show, you can have yourself a wonderful brunch. Prepare for Owambe later if you have any to attend, but ensure that you catch some rest and resume business or work Monday all fired up. If what you do is such that you can actually take some time off during the weekend. Make the most of it. I am Blessing Eichie. But as you plan on enjoying your weekend, take Sook News TV along with you, and also the Isle 104.9 FM, so that you can listen to some good music as well. So you can also get great information. There will be the media news at noon and also World News at 3 p.m. on Sook News TV, as well as other interesting programs. I'm Blessing Eichie. I have been doing this show today with Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze and Oyinpreye Krumale. So they have a word to say to you before they say bye.
Quite a nice time being here all week. And next week is another time. Looking forward to being here, God keeping us alive. Thank you to all our cameramen. Great work.
Yes. A great weekend to you. See you next week.